Hey, it's the homie Big Ear here, and we're back once again for another Labyrinth / UFC breakdown full card prediction video. I've been focusing on Mr. Arkansas's Mecca Season 7 these past few weeks, but it's finally time to get back over here and start pumping out some more UFC prediction content for you. We got a huge pay-per-view card to break down today. We're jumping right into it. Jessica Rose Clark versus Yulia Stellarenko is the first fight up, and no need to spend too much time here, guys. Yulia Stellarenko is a submission grappler who struggles mightily to make weight, and Jessica Rose Clark is a wrestler who will be the cleaner striker right here. Not a strong read by any means, but I just have a feeling that Jessica Rose Clark will be better at implementing her game than Yulia Stellarenko will be in this contest. Low-level women's MMA is always a pass at the betting window, but as for a pick, I just feel like Jessie Rose is the better fighter in this one. Stellarenko is live for her armbar that she likes here, but considering Jessie had never been armbar prior to her last fight, I just don't really see it happening twice in a row, but I could be wrong. I'll take Jessica Rose Clark to open the card with a win. Jessica I versus Macy Barber next. What can I say about this one? I mean, I'm certainly not the biggest fan of either of these ladies, but still it's pretty clear that one of them is on the way up and the other one is probably on the way out of the UFC. Jessica I being the latter. She's a flat-footed striker who you never really know whether she's going to show up and fight hard or hardly fight. She displays good heart in fights, but her defense leaves quite a bit to be desired. Her opponent, Macy Barber, is a hot young prospect who has been largely looking good in the octagon. Adequate striking and heavy top control on the floor. Bottom line, I can't trust Jessica I to do anything against a strong, hungry young competitor like Macy Barber, besides be tough to finish when she's getting beat up by her. Easy pick here, give me Macy Barber by decision. Next up, Uriah Hall versus Andre Munhoz. Uriah Hall, holder of the best knockout in the Ultimate Fighter history, is a fantastic kickboxer and one of the most athletic guys in the middleweight division. My problem with him, though, is that a lot of times he relies on techniques that are more flashy than they are effective, and big actions like that can get him in big trouble if they're not properly set up here. His opponent is a submission specialist who's white hot right now in Andre Munhoz. There aren't many fighters in the world today who are as feared on the ground as Andre Munhoz is. Now, he has been knocked out before, but the last time that happened was a long time ago, and it was against a guy who is now knocking fools out in the UFC up at light heavyweight. On the other side, Uriah Hall has never been submitted before, but he's also never faced anyone who submitted Jacare Souza before either. So I got to ride with my boy Munhoz again here. I see the line has gotten a little bit too steam for a bet on him, but still, the pick's definitely Andre Munhoz. Alright, so Brad Tavares versus Dricus du Plessis up next, and it's hard to ignore the fact that of Brad Tavares' 14 UFC wins, exactly one of those was over a guy who's still in the organization. Now, he's a solid, well-rounded fighter with good power in his strikes and incredible takedown defense. However, one thing I noticed was when he fought Antonio Carlos Jr., Shoeface actually landed some nice punches on Brad for being a grappler. That's not a good sign here, as he's taken on such a potent finisher with huge power in his hands in du Plessis right here. Dricus is a guy who is just an absolute wild man. He can finish you from anywhere, and he's never been to the scorecards, win or lose, a day in his career. Meanwhile, Brad Tavares basically never finishes anybody, so if this fight ends inside the distance, I expect du Plessis to be the one getting his hand raised. I don't see this fight going to a decision, but I do see Dricus du Plessis knocking out Brad Tavares inside the first 2 rounds, so give me du Plessis with a spectacular highlight reel right hand here. We got a Legends fight up next, Cowboy Cerrone versus Jim Miller, part 2. This one got put together on very short notice as Cowboy replaces Bobby Green to take on Jim Miller here in a rematch 8 years in the making, and there's a lot of UFC history on the line this time around. That's because with a win, Jim Miller would overtake Cowboy Cerrone himself for most wins in UFC history. And not only that, but he could also tie Cowboy Cerrone for second most finishes in UFC history behind only Charles Oliveira with a stoppage or submission here. Of course, in their first fight, All those years ago, Cowboy absolutely battered Miller with knees and kicks to the body, hurting him several times before ultimately setting up the head kick knockout. This one, however, will be a completely different fight. Cowboy's chin is dust at this point with all the wars he's been through. Not to mention, this will be his third weight cut in about a month and a half due to the Lozon fight falling off on 2 separate occasions the day of the events. None of that really bodes well for Cowboy here, especially since Jim Miller has proven to still have great pop on his punches lately. I would say that Cowboy is the slightly better striker of the two, while Miller is the slightly better grappler, but the bigger factor here will likely be Cowboy's inability to take a punch anymore. I got Jim Miller exacting his revenge and stopping Cowboy Cerrone here, evening the score while making UFC history in the process. Give me Jim Miller. Outstanding fight up next. Iain Gary versus Gabe Green. Iain Gary is the young prospect out of Ireland. He has tremendous striking and excellent takedown defense. On the feet, his range, high volume of attacks, and counter-punching ability is where he usually gets out ahead of the opponent. He's facing a stiff test here as he takes on Gabe Green. Gabe's that guy who loves to come forward applying pressure as he thrives in a dogfight. I can see both men finding success early in this one, but Green has a great chin and heavy hands, so the longer it goes, it could swing in his favor. Iain will be the more technical striker of the two, but I'm seeing key flaws in his game that a guy like Green will be able to take advantage of, particularly after the corrective eye surgery that he recently got, which allows him to have improved depth perception. For one, Gary's left hand is almost always way down whenever he shoots the right. Given that Green has a nasty right hook and is always more than happy to take a shot to give one, that's something that could be disastrous for Iain if it's not addressed. Another thing is Gary has a bad habit of circling out of an exchange with his chin up. Against a heavy pressure power puncher like Green, that's going to be a big problem. Not a high confidence pick for me, but I see Gabe Green landing the more damaging shots here, so I'll take a flyer on him. Give me Green. Here we go. Up next, we got Brad Riddell versus Jalen Turner. This is an excellent matchup right here, guys. This is the fight I've struggled the most with on the card. I could see this one going either way, and I wouldn't be surprised to see any kind of ending to a fight like this. I've been back and forth on this one all week, and I honestly think that this could end up being the best scrap on a card full of fight of the night contenders. You see, that's because both guys here have the skills necessary to end the other's night early. On the one hand, you got the devastating knees and big power of Jalen Turner, and on the other, you've got the crushing elbows and the mastery of technique of Brad Riddell. Jalen Turner is the huge striker who fights well from both stances on the feet. He's a guy making improvements to his game, but he's not really known for his grappling. His opponent, Brad Riddell, isn't known for his grappling either, but he will definitely be the better wrestler of the two. Brad's known for his technical striking ability, and for being as technically and fundamentally sound as he is, the guy's an absolute dog, man. There aren't too many fighters on earth who have quite the same combination of striking proficiency and toughness. Riddell is a joy to watch if you love the stand-up. His offense to defense is really good, but it's his defense to offense that's truly next level. Brad's superb counterpunching can give problems to anyone in the division. Now, he just fought a guy who may just be the most skilled technician on the feet in the sport in Rafael Fiziev, who actually happens to be a good friend of his, so I give him a pass for not looking his best there. Actually, in terms of the striking, I'd say that the lesser experienced Turner is a step back in competition from Fiziev. Now, that's not to say that Jalen Turner isn't dangerous at all, because he certainly is extremely dangerous. He just hasn't yet made it to the level of the best strikers in the game. I know Jalen Turner's a popular pick this week, and most are thinking that he's going to spark Brad Riddell out of there. I get that, man, because it absolutely could happen, but I'm actually leaning the other way on this one. I see Jalen Turner not really having the head movement that I feel he should have at this point in his development, and with the counters that I know Brad has, that's something that could be problematic for Turner here. Also, I think Riddell is the more well-rounded fighter here, and I could see him finding a lot of success with the takedown. against a guy like Turner. One thing he has to watch out for, though, is that step-in knee of Turner, because if he gets caught with that on the way in, it's game over. If he can avoid that, then I just feel like the experience that he has and the totality of Brad's offense will be enough to get one over on the young kid right here. So, yeah, unpopular opinion, but I got Brad Riddell in an upset. Pedro Munhoz versus Sean O'Malley up. Very straightforward breakdown for this one, guys. This fight comes down to Pedro Munhoz's nasty leg kicks versus the straight punches of Sean O'Malley. Sean has been damaged to the legs before, and I'm sure Munhoz is going to try to recreate that success that Sean's previous opponents have had doing just that. The problem he's going to run into, though, is going to be the punching accuracy of O'Malley. Munhoz can have a decent head movement at times, but he mostly chooses not to because he knows he can take such a good shot. And the biggest issue that he's going to have is the fact that he leaves his head directly on the center line anytime he kicks. Since a straight line always beats a circular one to the target, O'Malley should be able to put that 7-inch reach advantage to good use all night long. Pedro's very difficult to put away, but Sean does possess the striking ability to be able to get that done. If not, it should be Sean O'Malley cruising to the decision victory anyway. Give me the Sugar Show in another dominant performance. Excellent matchup up next. Robbie Lawler versus Bryan Barberena. My old coach, Robbie Lawler, is coming off a win over his old rival, Nick Diaz here. He's a hard-nosed veteran who loves to step in on you and wing hooks to the body and head. Robbie's an old-school brawler who's at his best fighting in a phone booth. He'll be taking on Bryan Barberena, a guy who is a junkyard dog in his own right. Barberena is a gritty scrapper who wants to pour on the pressure in a dogfight, and I think he'll get his chance to do that here, because I certainly expect this one to be an all-action war for as long as it lasts. I think that Robbie has the power to stop Bryan Barberena here, but against guys who have high volume and keep a good pace, he can be a bit too defensive-minded at times, particularly if the guy keeps him along the side of the octagon. You know, Bryan Barberena is that guy who can keep that kind of pace, so that could end up being a problem for Robbie if he can't find the shot to put him away. As much as it pains me to say this, I think that Barberena is the fresher guy who's just more invested in his career right now, so I'm gonna have to go with him. Yeah, give me Bryan Barberena. Banger up next. Sean Strickland versus Alex Pereira in a middleweight #1 contenders match. Alright, Sean Strickland, of course, crazy guy, loves to fight. He prefers to box as he's pretty good at it, but he also has solid grappling that's rarely seen. Alex Pereira is most known for being the only man to have knocked out Israel Adesanya. He is the kickboxing champion who is now just one MMA win away from potentially facing Adesanya again for the title. So, a lot has been made of the strategy that Sean Strickland is going to attempt to use in this fight. Everyone wants to know if he's going to wrestle and speculating on how long he'll stand with Alex before shooting the takedown on him. For me, I can't go by what people think someone is going to do or what everyone thinks they should do. I have to pick fights based on what I've seen on tape, and from what I've seen, Sean Strickland is just not a wrestler, guys. He likes to strike, and Alex Pereira is simply better at what Sean likes to do. So, I mean, I gotta go Pereira here. I know this is probably the most debated fight on the card, and a lot of people are picking Strickland here. I don't mind the pick, but I am on Alex Pereira, and I actually see him getting the finish. So, yeah, give me Alex Pereira. Co-main event time. Alexander Volkanowski versus Max Holloway, Part 3. So I talked about how Alexander Volkanovski is the master of the mid-fight adjustment in the breakdown of his last fight, and we saw that as he became one of the few men to ever stop the Korean Zombie with strikes. As a matter of fact, I think he might even be better at it than I thought he was, because I didn't expect him to really finish the Zombie like that. This time he's got another matchup with Max Holloway, whose volume and durability are unmatched in the class. Now, in the 2 years since their last encounter, it's been Volk who's made the greater improvements to his overall game. I think he's coming into this third fight against his rival with a chip on his shoulder, and I'm highly confident he closes the book on the trilogy here. For sure, Holloway is absolutely legendary in his ability to somehow take massive amounts of damage and never succumb to strikes. So I'm not sure if Volkanovski will be able to be the first to ever knock him out, but that won't stop Volk from trying to end Max Holloway in violent fashion, as he looks to really solidify his status as the greatest featherweight champion of all time. Should be yet another highly entertaining one, but I also see it being the final chapter of this saga. Give me Alexander Volkanovski here. And in the main event, we got Israel Adesanya versus Jared Cannonier. Of course, you got Israel Adesanya, the most decorated and dominant striker in the UFC today, taking on the big power puncher Jared Cannonier, who's knocked out opponents across 3 weight divisions. Real simple fight to break down right here, guys. The most important thing to know about this one is that Jared Cannonier has flat feet. Now, that's not to say that he's necessarily flat-footed, but he does fight like his feet are actually flat. What I mean by that, you'll notice that whenever Cannonier fought Rob Whittaker, Rob was able to get in on him, land his strikes, and get out quickly. That's because Robert Whittaker is always on the ball of the feet. Very rarely will you see his lead foot making complete contact with the mat. Jared Cannonier doesn't have that kind of technique to a stand-up. Whenever he moves forward, his lead foot will go flat to the mat, making it appear that he has flat feet. It isn't that he has slow feet, it's just that his improper technique makes it difficult for him to catch up to elite level strikers. That's obviously a bad thing against a guy like Izzy. Like the great Teddy Atlas always says, a powerful warhead is nothing without a delivery system. Because without a delivery system to get that payload to the target, it's just a bomb that blows up in your face. I see Adesanya picking Jared Cannonier off on the way in all night long, en route to another title defense. Jared Cannonier, he's tough to put away, so the over 2.5 is probably a good bet here, but I got Israel Adesanya getting it done. And if you made it this far, guys, huge shout out to you. Smash the like and subscribe for more. Check out the big homie, Just My 2 Cents on YouTube. And as always, be sure to subscribe to Mr. Arkansas on YouTube for the craziest live streams and the very best MMA prediction competitions. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.